Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuhu, and good morning to each and everyone. So I am a second reporter, so I will discuss my part, which is Mead and the social self. So let's begin. George Herbert Mead, 1863 to 1931, is an American sociologist best known as a founder of American pragmatism, a peer of symbolic interaction theory, and as one of the founders of social theory. It means Mead's theory of the self maintains that the conception a person holds of himself or herself in her mind emerge from social interaction with others. So, next is the self, according to the Mead, is made of two components, the I and the me. The me represents the expectations and attitudes of others. The generalized others are organized into a social self. And this means that the individual defines his or her own behavior with reference to the generalized attitude of the social groups he or she occupies. When the individual can view himself or herself from the standpoint of the generalized other, self-consciousness and the full sense of the term is attained. From this standpoint, the generalized other, or internalized in the me, is the major instrument of social control, for it is the mechanisms by which the community exercises control over the conduct of its individual members. And next is the I is the response to the me, or the person's individuality. It is the essence of agency in human action. So, in effect, the me is the self as object, while the I is the self as subject. So, this means po na, in other words, the I is the response of an individual to the attitudes of others, while the me is the accumulated understanding of the generalized other on how one thinks one's group perceives oneself. The I is the individual's impulses. The I is self as subject. The me is self as object. The I is the knower, the me is the known. The mind or stream of thoughts as the self-reflective movements of the interaction between the I and the me. And next, our sense of self is influenced by others' view of us. According to the American sociologist Charles Horton Coley, 1864 to 1929, the degree of personal insecurity you display in social situations is determined by what you believe other people think of you. Coley's concept of the glass self states that a person's self grows out a person's social interactions with others. The view of ourselves comes from the contemplation of personal qualities and impressions of how others perceive us. Actually, how we see ourselves does not come from who we really are, but rather from how we believe others sees us. So this means that generalized other refers to the viewpoints of the social group and at large. The child begins taking this perspective into account during this stage. Sample of our sense of self is influenced by others. Sometimes the influence of other peoples of ourself on our self concept may be strong that we end up internalizing them. For example, we are often labeled in particular ways by others perhaps informally in terms of ethnic background, or more formally in terms of physical or physiological diagnosis. The leveling bias occurs when we are leveled and others' views and expectations of us are affected by that leveling. For example, if a teacher knows that a child has been diagnosed with particular physiological disorder, that the teacher may have different expectations of the child's behavior than he or she would if not aware of that level. Where things get really interesting for our present of discussion is when those expectations start to become self-fulfilling, and our self-concept and even our behavior start to align with them. For example, when children are leveled in special education's context, these levels can then impact their self. Next, other cases, level used by wider society to describe people negatively can be positively reclaimed by those being labeled. Glasinski and Collage Gunner explore this use of self-labeling by members of oppressed groups to reclaim derogatory terms including cure and bitch, like ganun, used by dominant groups after self-labeling minority group members evaluated these terms negatively, reported feeling more powerful, and were also perceived by observers as more powerful. Overall, this result indicate that individuals who incorporate a formerly negative level into their self-concept in order to reclaim it can sometimes undermine the stigma attached to the level. Explain. So ma-explain about this is if we are repeatedly leveled in evaluated by others, then self-leveling may occur, which happens when we adopt others' levels into our self-concept. The effects of this self-leveling instead appears to depend very much on the nature of the levels. Levels used in relation to diagnosis of physiological disorders can be detrimental to people who then internalize them. So, yun lang po. Thank you.